All right, y'all. Another week, another set of weekend picks. This time, just in the NFL, we got 4 games for y'all, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns. We should preface these picks, by saying we are both picking the Jaguars if Trevor Lawrence is able to come back and play. Right now, he's questionable, slated to possibly be there Sunday. If not, then I'd say the Browns have the better chance of winning. But I mean, this one's pretty hard because Browns, they've been on a slump obviously past couple weeks. And right now they're rolling with Joe Flacco. It seems like they've gone through like 4 or 5 quarterbacks now this season. It's a little ridiculous up there. But yeah, I would say Jags right now, conditionally if Trevor plays.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence are a more confident team to pick than the Browns. They're only 1 game ahead of them, actually, which feels a little weird this season. Jaguars had some weird moments, but with Trevor Lawrence in, I think they're a lock to take this game. The chemistry between him and ETN is good. Christian Kirk has, aside from like catching touchdowns, has been pretty good. Which they've done a lot of their work on the ground this year anyway. But if it ends up being CJ Beathard, then I think the Browns probably have a better chance to force some turnovers and steal a win there. Obviously, we had a classic game between CJ Beathard and Jake Browning, mostly Trevor Lawrence and Jake Browning with the Bengals last week. But once Lawrence went down, Beathard wasn't able to keep up with Jake Browning, which is a crazy statement to think about for this year's NFL games. And the Bengals were able to clip the Jaguars. So I don't know if I trusted if CJ has to come in, but I'm going to take T-Law on the Jags and assume that's what we're going to get. There we have a divisional matchup that is a rematch of just a few weeks ago. It went poorly for one of these teams just a few weeks ago, and I don't think it'll be too much better. It might not be as bad, but I would say that it's going to be bad. We have the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. We're both going to be taking the Niners in this one. We said it last week. We don't think there's many teams that are better than this 49ers team right now, and there's some ways that you can get under the Niners' skin and kind of make them uncomfortable, make them get in a situation where they make some mistakes and lose. I'm not sure the Seahawks are the team that can kind of get them in that scenario, as well as some of these other top-tier teams. And it's unfortunate the Seahawks are a good team. That if they lose this game, they'll come out with a losing record, being 6-7. Not entirely sure they deserve that one, but it looks to be the crash course they're headed on. I just don't think they can overcome this Niners team.
Yeah, man, Seahawks got it rough right now. I mean, they've had probably the worst luck of the draw here. We talk about the Cowboys slate of games, the Bills slate of games, the Eagles, and all those teams who they're playing, kind of in this late season period. Seahawks, they had a loss to the Rams, which the Rams are really hard to predict right now. I mean, you don't know what they're gonna do, but they lose to the Rams. Then they got that game against the Niners Thanksgiving. They lose, not good in that one. They lose that heartbreaker on Thursday Night Football last week against the Cowboys. So now you got the Niners again. And then you got the Eagles next week on Monday Night Football. So it's like they got a pretty bad luck of the draw there. So they could literally be going from being 6-3 prior to that Rams game to now being 6-8 if they do lose the next two, which they might against two of the best teams in the conference. So again, I am picking the Niners, as well. But I think the one thing in this game is that the Seahawks be darn near playing for their playoff lives because they lose this one and then lose the next one. It's going to be rough with some of the teams now in the NFC around them. Kind of getting a little bit better. The Packers, of course. So, yeah, they need to kind of pick it up here. But I don't think that'll happen in this one. And we're going to move to a, somewhat of a button rivalry over the past few years, of course. These teams have met multiple times in the playoffs. Bills and Chiefs. Now, this one might be maybe a little bit surprising. I guess not as much of a surprise as after the Sunday Night Football result. We're both going with Buffalo in this one. And I thought my reasoning was going to be a little bit different than yours, but, we talked about it before. And main reason here is just I feel like the Bills are kind of just this is a game where you would say, oh man, the Bills they're 6-6. They haven't been having the best time as of late. The Chiefs, despite that loss, they're still up there. And then the Bills somehow pull that one out to win. Now, analytically, of course, The Bills generally play them well. Of course, in the regular season, obviously playoffs, that's a different story, of course. But regular season, Bills generally play them well. Um, and you mentioned it to me before, and I had missed it. Isaiah Pacheco is not going to be playing in this one. He's completely out. He's not going to be back till at least the next week. That's a loss. Obviously, this Chiefs offense has had some struggles this season. Um, and losing your starting running back, not going to be good. It's going to put more on Patrick Mahomes in the passing game. I don't know if they can really pick up the slack. And as lukewarm and disappointing the Bills have been, over the past month and a half, I still think they can get this one rolling. Try to get the rest of their season rolling as they want to make a playoff push.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bills are, in fact, due for one. That does go heavily into my picking. But the Chiefs' offense has just not been the most beautiful thing, especially in the air. They've been able to get out of these games because they have Pacheco either getting into the end zone or just picking up a lot of yards and getting them where they need to go. And I just think that without Pacheco, this Chiefs offense has already been struggling in the second half. Is not going to have a lot going for it. Not going to be able to get down the field as efficiently this season. It just hasn't been there in the air. Even the Patrick Mahomes Kelsey connection hasn't been as solid. Kelsey as their leading receiver, but I don't know. This one just feels like a trap game for the Chiefs. So everything went wrong. Their offense hasn't been good. They lose one of the bigger parts, the engine of that offense. And the Bills feel like they're due for one. The last thing they did before their bye week was just barely lose to the Eagles in overtime. And I mean, if you take that performance, you get a bye week. I think they come off of that pretty strong and put it to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to be angry. They just lost to the Packers. They're surely, it's hard to say that Patrick Mahomes will lose 2 in a row. It's not a super common occurrence, but I'm going to go for that one on this one. I just think the Pacheco loss is going to loom large in this one. From there, we may be making another controversial pick, and it might be a shock that both of us agree on it. ESPN Analytics actually agree with us on this heavily, which is kind of crazy. So maybe it's not so controversial. I don't know. But we are going to be taking the Dallas Cowboys over the Philadelphia Eagles. This is nothing against the Eagles. This is just the spirit of the rivalry for me. These teams very, commonly split their season with the Eagles taking the Philly game and Dallas taking the Dallas game. And I think the Eagles are, in a bit of a slump. They just got handled by the Niners, and the Dallas defense did decently against them just a few weeks ago. And I think can kind of look at that Niners game and maybe find some pathways to success. They did allow a lot of points from Seattle, but Seattle at their peak as a high flying offense before that. They did what they needed to do against some of the bad teams in the league. I just think that since the Eagles lost, specifically, that the Cowboys offense has found its footing. Dak and CeeDee Lamb have been going crazy. Dak is one of the few QBs this season that I think has an actual MVP case. Otherwise, I'd put it on some of the weapons like Tyreek Hill or CMC. But Dak has played really, really good football, especially since the Eagles lost. And I think that, I trust the Dallas Cowboys at home here to pick up a rivalry win and really shake up this division. Because that Niners lost, if the Dallas Cowboys take this, they end up 10-3, the Eagles end up 10-3. And just like that, we're back in a tight race. The Dallas Cowboys aren't so far behind. A loss here, though, pretty much ties this one up.
Yeah, I think this game means more for the Cowboys. And this is not as somebody that, say, oh, I want this reverse psychology. Oh, I want the Cowboys to lose because it means more because they're worse. No, like, I think it does mean more. Obviously it ties it up, 1-1 in the, tiebreaker for this year. And of course it ties it up record wise 10-3. So, when we did our little playoff preview last week, I was like, I figured the Eagles would probably stay at 1 and the Cowboys, by virtue of not winning their division, would be 5 at best, which I think they would definitely be 5 because the rest of the wild card teams would not be close to them. Cowboys could probably end up with, heck, probably 12 wins because they're at 9 right now. So I mean, it's definitely plausible to get 12. So to get to that point, Cowboys definitely have to win this game. I think this game has to shut people up. Like, and the Seahawks game might have, but I still think a lot of people probably didn't give them that much credit because their defense allowed so many points in this one. And if the Seahawks maybe had not have been as stupid as they were with some of those decisions on fourth down, maybe they win. So then people would have been saying like, "Hey, you got beat by Geno Smith." So it it's funny because on the flip side, the Eagles, they just lose to the Niners, they get thrashed, and now you got people doubting them. So I think both teams are coming into this game like, hey, second time we're meeting. This one's in Dallas. Sunday Night Football. I mean, this is going to be one of the biggest games of the year, save for if they do play each other in the playoffs. But like you said, I mean, I think the idea of them splitting it probably makes most sense there. And I did pick the Cowboys. I said like before the Eagles game, the first time, hey, they play in Philly. I say the Cowboys lose. They play in Dallas. The Cowboys will win. I'll stick with that. And with the way the Cowboys have played as of late, especially Dak, and the Eagles lost just last week, I think that helps my case a little bit more. But I definitely would say like this, if this is a game that the Cowboys end up losing, they're probably done. As far as winning the division, of course, not playoffs or anything, but this game's going to mean a lot for them, and I think that'll kind of boost them up to get that win.